Hello, everyone. This is Alexander Horat, your host of the Free American Press. Today, we are going to be having the president of Miles Franklin on the show, Andy Schectman. But before we get into it, if you could please subscribe to the show and leave a like on the video, that'll be really appreciated. Hello, Andy. How are you today?
Alex, it's good to see you, my man. I'm happy it's Friday. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how the US dollar is actually a Ponzi scheme. So I wanted to share this chart with you from this article that I found pretty interesting. So it says the dollar once tied to gold is now just a confidence game. So we see here during the abandonment of the gold standard, it was fairly similar, the value of the gold reserves versus the US monetary base, but now we see what it is, how high it's gotten in recent years, and it's pretty amazing. And I really like this article because it says this right here, that it's not just the US dollar. All currencies are a Ponzi scheme that lose value relative to gold, the world's best store of value for over 2,500 years. And the Ponzi scheme was originally named for this man named Charles Ponzi, which basically, is a pyramid scheme. So what do you think of this? Do you think the US dollar is a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that to an extent. I don't know if it really fits the classical definition of it, but certainly, what the U.S. dollar is it's a scam. And I was reading an article the other day, Alex, written by Alan Greenspan in the Financial Times, and maybe he was trying to clear his conscience as he's an old man, and he admitted that the Fed is out to lower the value of the dollar, and they do this by injecting money into the bond market in an effort to get asset prices higher and interest rates low. The logic being that higher asset prices make people feel richer and more inclined to spend money. But we know that if creating wealth and prosperity was as simple as printing money, Zimbabwe would have been the wealthiest nation in the world. And when you're looking at a country that's produced $9 trillion of wealth that we know of, or of money rather, currency, I should say, since September of 2019, we are watering down our currency, to say the least. And I think that look, just the other day, John Williams was on Kitco, and he was saying that the US government numbers that come out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics are very wrong, that the CPI, which doesn't even include food and energy, is grossly misquoted at 5.4%. He's saying that, and that was their transitory inflation for June. He was saying that it's actually already 13.5%, much higher than the 5.4% the Bureau of Labor Statistics is quoting. And look, the most basic measure of money supply lately, since they got rid of M2 and M3, is M1, and that's up over 80%, Alex, since the pre-pandemic levels. So we're talking about whether you call it a Ponzi scheme or I call it a scam. The bottom line is it's being inflated away. And my question back to you would be, how long can the world's biggest superpower, a country which debases its currency, how long can it be the most dynamic economy in the world? And ultimately, I think that a country that continues to print the way that the US dollar has is, I guess you could call it a Ponzi scheme, no question about it, in the respect that there's nothing standing behind it any longer but the military, the ability to tax, and the printing press. So is it a Ponzi scheme? Is it I don't know. I find it interesting that the world's largest debtor in the history of the world is considered the reserve currency. And I think at some point, in fact, I think you could argue you're already seeing big money move away from the dollar. You're seeing massive de-dollarization. And so I think the rest of the world really has caught on to it. And when we talk about owning precious metals, Alex, I own gold because it can't go bankrupt, and it'll always have a market. And, look, as it pertains to the dollar, history has clearly demonstrated that all fiat money becomes worthless over time. And, no fiat currency, the dollar included, it really, in terms of, well, I shouldn't say that the dollar has bucked this trend, but basically no fiat money has ever lasted. Well, ever lasted as long as 100 years. And the dollar that we know now has not lasted 100 years. When you look at the severing of gold, at least for the people in 1933, if we look at 1971 really as the crux, when the gold window was closed to foreign banks as well, to central banks, the average lifespan is 40 to 50 years throughout all of history, going back to the 1400s. And it was just over 50 years ago that Nixon closed the gold window. So rendering the dollar completely fiat, you tell me. It's we're on the last legs, I would say, of this system. So whether it be a scam, whether it be a Ponzi scheme, whatever it is, it is, there's nothing behind it any longer but the printing press and the military and the government's ability to throw you in jail for not paying your taxes. So whatever it is, it really isn't money any longer. It's currency in a poor store of value, to say the least, especially since John Williams saying it's running 13.5%. And for anyone who doesn't know who John Williams is, Alex, he's kind of a legend in this industry, and all he really does is cite the statistics, whether it be unemployment or inflation, money creation, based upon the metrics that used to be used under previous administrations. And even if you don't take his numbers, which I think are far more accurate than the nonsense coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics at 5.4%, 5.4% compounded, that tells you in 14 years, the value of your money is increased by or decreased in half. So I would simply say to you, yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, and it's a poor store of value.
Yeah, so a big question for me, Andy, and for a lot of the viewers is, how was the United States government, after they took us off the gold standard, how were they able to make the people believe that, just basically money backed by nothing was actually worth something? It seems like they were able to trick the people somehow. How do you think they were successful in this?
They were, because Kissinger struck a deal with OPEC and the dollar became the petrodollar, whereby OPEC agreed that all oil sold around the world would be valued in dollars. So if you wanted to have oil, you had to have dollars. So really it became the petrodollar, which by default meant it was the world reserve currency, because you needed to have dollars in order to buy oil. And that was a deal that was struck a long time ago with OPEC and the Saudis. And so, if you look at what's happening in China, China has created the Chinese petro-yuan bond. And this is a country that's building an infrastructure internally and externally with the Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative we've talked about. They built the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which delivered 90 times more gold than the COMEX market has in the past couple of years. Why? Because of the Chinese petro-yuan bond. What the petro-yuan bond is, it is a workaround for the petrodollar. It gives China the ability to buy oil from countries like Iran and natural gas from countries like Russia and pay for it in a bond denominated in yuan that is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And so you are seeing a country that is developing an infrastructure, whether it be a system that matches the SWIFT system, whether it be the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which matches the COMEX, whether it be the petro-yuan, which challenges the petrodollar. They're a country that is certainly, I think, has aspirations of challenging the United States for singular world reserve status, and that is certainly the way to go after it. Is if all of a sudden it loses its singular status with OPEC as the petrodollar, you've now cut the dollar's legs off, right at the knees. So that's how they did it. And I would argue we're probably getting towards the latter stages of the ball game in terms of its singular application for oil out of OPEC. So take that out of the equation, and there really is nothing to anoint it as world reserve.
So basically, as it stands, as long as the U.S. dollar controls the oil supply, or the U.S. government, the dollar will probably reign supreme for that amount of time, you think?
Yeah, I do. And that's really what's backing the value of the dollar right now, is the fact that everyone needs to own it in order to buy energy. And So you take that out of the equation, give people alternatives, and I think a lot of the countries around the world would choose to exodus the U.S. dollar and find other alternatives.
Okay, so I just want to share the screen really quick so people can see the OPEC countries. So I would have to say, at least out of all these OPEC countries, it seems like, Saudi Arabia and some other ones are, more on the United States side, but we see Venezuela and Iran are also part of OPEC, and they seem to be more Chinese leaning. Do you think that's true? Do you think we're starting to see OPEC moving away from the US and more into China?
Well, certainly the countries that aren't in Saudi Arabia, yeah, I would say Iran and China have a vested interest in not purchasing oil from OPEC in dollars. I think they would rather explore other alternatives, and maybe that's why they are creating such a massive infrastructure inside of Africa. They are attempting, I think, to find ways to dethrone the dollar as the singular world reserve currency. And the pieces are put into place, no question about it. But the Chinese petro yuan is the first real big piece of it. But if you take a step back, I mean, they accumulate more gold than anyone in the world. They're the largest producers. They're buying up all the oil reserves, as many as they can in future production. They're buying up all of the world's commodities. They're building a robust infrastructure within China. They're building 12 airports a year, their bridges, their roads, their infrastructure is so much better than ours internally. They have ghost cities, for God's sakes, and now they're building an external infrastructure, the most ambitious one ever attempted. And when you look at the pieces that are in place, a system to mirror the SWIFT, a system to mirror the COMEX, a system to mirror the petrodollar, largest accumulator of hard assets in the world, they are building an economy based upon assets, where ours is one based upon debt. And I think that's ultimately which will tip the scales in favor of the BRICS nations, away from a debtor nation like the US, which continues to go full modern monetary theory and debt be damned. And at some point, chips get called in. At some point, the rubber meets the road. And I think you see a decreasing standard of living in the United States. And there's an old saying, he who has the gold makes the rules. You can see all the gold is flowing eastward. And, look, the illusion of prosperity in this country, Alex, has been fostered by the grace of our foreign creditors. And I think it's becoming very obvious that these investors are beginning to worry about the situation in the US. And for the last 4 years, I've seen big money quietly moving out of dollars and treasuries and into gold and commodities. And I think the big money realizes in order to maximize their returns and protect their purchasing power, they must quietly exit dollars and slowly accumulate gold and commodities. But I would argue at some point, this tiptoeing out of fiat currencies and into gold turns into an all-out sprint. And I think, to your point, at some point the world will realize what a scam accepting dollars as the world reserve currency really is, and that's why we own gold, and that's when this tiptoeing turns into a sprint. So, yeah, to your point, I think the world is waking up to the scam that the dollar is, a currency that is backed by nothing, that can continue to print trillions of dollars to enrich this country, to pay people to sit on their couch with nothing behind the value of that dollar but the government's ability to say that it's money.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Andy. And it seems like the people are finally waking up. We've seen them waking up, in places like India and China, but even the United States, which I think is a great thing. We're starting to see some states actually accepting, gold and silver as money again, non-taxable. And one thing I saw that was pretty cool, that they're actually making these state depositories where they actually have gold, stored. What do you think of those things that are happening in the United States right now? Do you think?
Well, I'm all for it. An awareness of sound money, moving back towards, look, those states, let's hope that their intentions are noble and they're trying to protect their citizens from what's happening to the value of the US dollar. If John Williams is correct and we're at 13% inflation, you're losing 13% every single year to the value of the printing press. Your dollar is devalued every year by now 13.5%, as his latest numbers will tell us. That's a scary thing. That really is. You know, you divide 13 into 72, that tells you how long before things double, so, or cut in half. So 5 years, you lose half your purchasing power. I don't know. All I can tell you, Alex, is that I think that when we come to a place like this where you're seeing the complete acceptance of a debt that exceeds $145 trillion at interest rates the lowest level ever accumulated in human history, and the government wanting to continue to spend money on infrastructure programs and all of these programs without any way to pay for it but go further in debt, we're in a scary place. And I think people who save in dollars are destined to go broke if things continue the way they are.
Yeah, I think you're right, because we're basically having our wealth stored in a dream where we think paper is actually wealth, when it's when it comes down to it, we know what good paper money's for, when the Weimar Republic and all these, what happened in Germany, what happened in Venezuela, Zimbabwe also. So I think we are going to see something big going on. I think if the people can actually stand firm and say we want to use gold and silver as money, start using it, in stores and stuff and everything, I think we can actually get back, with American freedom and everything, because that's actually freedom of wealth. You have the freedom of your wealth, you have your gold, you have your silver. Gold and silver actually equals freedom in a way. US dollars, unfortunately, it's almost kind of like slavery, because you're beholden to a government that makes these fake, pieces of paper. So, and
Well, and equally concerning is the rhetoric that's accompanying what's happening with the economy. I just read an article the other day in the New York Magazine that proclaiming that socialism isn't a dirty word anymore. And it says that a recent Axios poll saying that most Gen Zers at 18 to 24, that's you nearly, have a negative view of capitalism. And this is a scary thing where you're talking villainizing or looking down upon success and entrepreneurialism and hard work and capitalism in favor of redistribution of wealth. This is not what the country was founded upon. And when we look and see what China is doing to build this massive infrastructure, I'm not really confident that we're prepared to take that on when we're more concerned about gender issues and race issues instead of the evisceration of our economy, the hyperinflation that's knocking on the doorstep right now with money creation, modern monetary theory. There are so many bigger problems than the color of someone's skin or their gender. We should all be measured upon what we bring to society, what we bring to the table, not what color, what race, what religion we are. And that seems to be the fixation of this country instead of fixing what ails us and our infrastructure or our debt problem or naked shorting on the markets. There's so many things that I could talk about that I believe are more important than these issues in order to fix things. And then we can talk about social issues. But until then, we're going to start to witness our standard of living decrease precipitously if we continue to inflate away the value of the dollar.
Yeah, I have to agree, but it is pretty good though that I have optimism. I still think, America can get its line in gear. We're starting to see a huge awakening across the United States, that we haven't really seen before in years. So I just hope, the people can wake up and, learn that gold and silver is actual money and, wake up to protect our freedoms. And I still think we have a chance of not being destroyed like the Roman Empire was, but it's really up to the people. It's really up to the people.
I really hope so. I hope people understand that. And look, people say, how high can gold and silver go? And I say this bull market's different than recent bull markets. It's not how high can it go, how bad can things get, I would ask. And the bull markets in stocks and bonds we witnessed over the last 20 years or longer were fantastic. But this bull market in commodities and precious metals, well, they can make you rich too, but that's not the idea. It can save you from a disaster in your other investments, because stocks, bonds, and real estate, for the first time ever, are all positively correlated. And normally there's inverse correlation between stocks and bonds. And on top of that, they're all at all-time highs, but they're inversely correlated to interest rates. And if something triggers interest rates to spike, everything collapses at once. Everything that America is in, stocks, bonds, and real estate, will collapse. And the only inversely correlated asset class any longer to the US stock market and to the US dollar really are precious metals. So this is why we own them. It's not to get wealthy, it's to protect ourselves from what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, it's, honestly, the reason why I like gold and silver is because I saw what happened with the Venezuelan Bolivar. Like, if my mom would have, like, we actually have at home, some 10,000 Bolivar notes that used to be worth something, but they're absolutely worthless now. And basically, I think the main thing, why people should get gold and silver is just to protect, their grandkids and everything else. Because, say if grandma was saving in dollars, like she had $1 million in the bank, but that's not going to be worth $1 million in, say, 20 years or even that amount of time. But if she had gold stored in her basement or wherever she stored it and gave it to you, that's going to be worth money, basically for as long as humanity exists. So I really think that's the main thing for getting gold. It's actually, to pass down your wealth to your kids, or just to have your wealth in a secure place. So I did want to ask you, Andy, did you have a special on gold and silver today?
I do, but just to that last point, I'll tilt this up here. I don't know if you can see this, but which one? You can see that one right there. That's a $20 gold piece, and that's a $20 gold certificate. Prior to 1933, gold and currency were interchangeable. You could take a $20 gold coin, which was basically an ounce of gold, and bring it into the bank and get a $20 certificate. It looks just like a $20 bill, with the exception of, instead of it saying "In God We Trust," it says "Payable to the bearer on demand" in gold coin. And so our currency was money, really, prior to 1933, when Roosevelt confiscated gold, because it was interchangeable with gold. So imagine your great-grandfather had 2 shoe boxes or 2 cigar boxes, and in one he leaves you $10,000 in $20 bills, and in the other he leaves you $10,000 in $20 gold coins. Now, that was the exact same amount of money in 1933. There was no deviation, no difference, right? So those $20 bills that are $10,000 right now, yeah, that's great. That would be a nice thing for an 18-year-old kid to take that 10 grand and go blow it. But the exact same amount in the 1 ounce gold coins right now, 500 of them would be worth almost $1 million. So, when you talk about just how much money has decreased in value, $520 gold pieces is worth $1 million, and 10 grand in $20 bills, what's that 10 grand worth right now? So when you talk about the depreciation of the US dollar as it relates to real money, gold, you can see such a stark contrast. It's lost, 99% of its value. So this is why we own gold. It's not to get rich, it's to preserve what, people work their tail off all their lives to obtain.
Yeah.
In terms of the special, yes, we have 2021 silver Krugerrands at $4.69 over the price of silver. Should be the best price in the country. Your listeners just need to send me an email at Andy@MilesFranklin. I will personally reply. Whatever they want to get, I'll make sure they get the best price in the country, and I will give a portion of every sale back to you, Alex, so you can continue to do what you're doing. I find what you are doing as a young man so important and so motivating to me and inspirational, that the youth of America realizes what real money is, and everything that you do and talk about. I just am constantly all I can say to you, Alex, is that I'm very honored to be a part of what you're doing. You're a fine young man, and anything I can do to help get the word out to people your age, and anyone for that matter, but especially people your age, to understand what sound money is all about. Um, I'm thrilled with. And if people your age were to put away a couple silver coins or a gold coin, whatever you can, every few weeks or every month, that's how you get wealthy. You pay yourself first, you pay yourself in silver and gold, get out of the monetary system that is on its final legs, this Keynesian-based debt-laden system that is moving away from everything this country stands for and moving into a system where full basic universal income and modern monetary theory is replacing, everything that's made this country great. And instead it's running us down a path that you and your children will have to pay for, a debt that, unless they reset this whole thing, is probably unpayable.
Yeah, and you make a really good point about buying like a silver eagle every week and stuff like that. Because I was actually when I was at Tennessee, I was talking to this old man, right? And he owned like an antique shop, and he was saying some guy told him, when he was younger, just put some of your money in gold every week or silver, but he didn't do that. He blew his money, but he was like 80 years old, and he was saying if he would have done that, he would have been pretty well off if he would have just put in what that guy said, every week. So
you've never seen someone with a pocket full of gold or silver begging for food or sleeping on a park bench looking for somewhere to sleep. And again, it's not to get rich, and it very well make you wealthy. It's because what's coming down the pike is going to destroy the value of the dollar, and it's to get out of the way of dollars. And I look around and I look for alternatives, and I really don't see any that I find relevant. You can put it into stocks or bonds or real estate, all at their all-time highs. And where else do you put it? You look at silver, it's barely above 50% of its all-time high, yet it's a commodity that's depleted in nature and has massive uses that are expanding every day. And the biggest money in the world is accumulating it. So for me, Alex, if I'm your age, I'm putting as much as I can every 2 weeks into silver, no matter what, even if it's only 1 ounce or 2 ounces. Pay yourself first. It's the only way to get ahead.
And one thing too, Andy, just as a final note, I wanted to say is, when you put your money in gold, you're not investing in a government that can fail. You're not investing in a stock company that sells stocks that can fail. You're investing in a metal that's not going to fail, like a government organization or a person like a financial.
It has no counterparty risk, and that's
Exactly.
the thing about it. It's one of the few assets in the world that is not simultaneously someone else's liability. That's right.
Even Bitcoin can fail because that can be hacked. So it's just like looking at everything. That's really the way to go. Because
Alex, you and I were talking off air today about hacking, and I will tell you that it is so sophisticated, it's extraordinary. And I was dealing with an issue earlier this morning where someone attempted to hack us and attempted to steal over $1 million. And luckily we have protocol in place that stopped it, but it's extraordinary, Alex, and it's never ending, and it's a constant battle. And identity theft, consumer fraud, it's real. And people need to understand that right now, that, I'm dealing with one of the biggest distributors in the world, and their system was hacked. Wow. And, they're able to insert themselves into email chains. They're able to say, hey, send the money to this wire instruction instead of that one. And luckily we have protocol in place that thwarted that. But the bottom line is that this is nonstop, never ending. And so removal of counterparty risk is a heck of a deal. And in a world of decreasing privacy, increased litigation, increased fraud, and increased ambition and sophistication in hacking, gold and silver are an island in the middle of all that craziness that you know, like I said, they're the only assets that are not simultaneously someone else's liability.
Well, yeah, you're right. Gold and silver can't be hacked like money on a ledger or on a computer. So I think that's something really important because they get
It is really
more
important.
sophisticated. The hacking gets worse every year. Like they say, oh, we came up with a way to stop hacking forever, but unfortunately, people get smarter. But yeah, if everyone could please check out Andy's site and please write him at Andy at milesfranklin.com, and please mention the name the Free American Press when you're buying gold and silver. That'll be really.
If they do mention that, Alex, they'll get the best price in the country. I will make sure of it. And like I said, portion of every sale will be donated back to you for you to continue doing what you're doing. And it's with great admiration and respect that I say that. I look forward to our calls every Friday. I will continue to do this with you, and we'll grow together and see where this takes us.
Well, that's really great, Andy. And I would like to thank the viewers who are watching this video. And please share this video with your friends. And yeah, that'll be really great. And just wanted to say God bless, and you all have a good day.
God bless. Take care, Alex.